I am Anthony from Hatchetson, and today we're going to look at a part of the history of Dragon Ball. Begun in the pages of the Japanese version of Shonen Jump magazine, Dragon Ball tells the story of a young boy who travels with a teenage girl around the world to collect the mysterious Dragon Balls. Meeting new friends and enemies, Goku and Bulma get into action fantasy hijinks that ultimately lead to a wish on the Dragon Balls. Over the years, the characters have grown up, started families, and continue to be one of the top entertainment properties in the world. For purposes of simplicity, we will be focusing on products released in North America. In 1988, Dragon Power was released on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Fearing that American players would not understand the original story content since it was based upon a manga, the Dragon Ball license material was stripped away and the graphics were altered. Otherwise, this adventure game story is simply Goku and Gang's journey through the first two chapters of the manga. In 1997, Dragon Ball GT Final Bout was released on the Sony PlayStation. The first Dragon Ball 3D fighter, Final Bout allowed players to complete the story of Dragon Ball GT. As they progressed in the story mode, they unlocked additional characters to use in the Versus mode. In 2002, Dragon Ball Z Budokai was released on the Sony PlayStation 2 and later on the Nintendo GameCube. Based in the Zen timeline, this fighting game featured a story that began at the Saiyan Saga and ended with the Android Saga. There was even the inclusion of a few what-if episodes. This game was later released in an HD version on the Microsoft Xbox 360 and Sony PlayStation 3. In 2003, Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Battle 22 was released on the Sony PlayStation. This 2.5D self-shaded fighter followed along with the story of Dragon Ball Z. Players could battle on the ground or in the air. In 2003, Dragon Ball Z Budokai 2 was released on the Sony PlayStation 2 and later on the Nintendo GameCube. The story of this fighting game starts at the beginning of Zen in the Saiyan Saga and continues all the way to the end in the Buu Saga. Attempting to look more like the anime, the character designs were cel-shaded. This game also introduced fusions and what-if fusions to the mix. In 2004, Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3 was released on the Sony PlayStation 2. This fighting game continues with the cel-shaded characters, but now adds story elements from Dragon Ball GT, and the Dragon Ball movies. This game was later released in an HD version on the Microsoft Xbox 360 and Sony PlayStation 3. In 2005, Dragon Ball Z Sagas was released on the Nintendo GameCube, Microsoft Xbox, and the Sony PlayStation 2. This adventure role-playing game followed the story of Zen from the Saiyan Saga to the Cell Game Saga. Players controlled different characters in a third-person view as they completed various goals to move the story forward. In 2005, Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi was released on the Sony PlayStation 2. A fighting game, players progressed through the Zen story and eventually found themselves combating giant enemies. This game also introduced a third-person view rather than the typical side view as in the Budokai series. In 2006, Super Dragon Ball Z was released on the Sony PlayStation 2. A cel-shaded 3D fighter, this game mirrored the manga art style of the original comic books. While covering story elements and characters from the entirety of Zen, the game was more focused on being a Street Fighter clone in play style. In 2006, Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 2 was released on the Sony PlayStation 2 and the Nintendo Wii. A continuation of the visual concepts established in Budokai Tenkaichi, this fighting game introduced on-screen transformations as opposed to only being able to choose them in the character select screen. The Wii version offered motion controls. In 2007, Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3 was released on the Sony PlayStation 2 and the Nintendo Wii. The third game in this series using the same visual style, this fighting game added story elements from Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball GT, and the Dragon Ball movies and What If episodes. In 2008, Dragon Ball Z Burst Limit was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360 and Sony PlayStation 3. This 3D fighter focused on the story of Zen from the Saiyan to the Cell sagas. This game is also the first in the series to be in high definition. Its story mode also included additional what-if scenarios. In 2008, Dragon Ball Z Infinite World was released on the Sony PlayStation 2. This cel-shaded fighting game offered some character customization options in the form of capsules. It also featured a story mode that focuses on the Zen storyline with additional GT and movie stories. In 2009, Dragon Ball Revenge of King Piccolo was released on the Nintendo Wii. A platforming beat-em-up game, the story occurred during the original Dragon Ball timeline, beginning at the Red Ribbon Army saga and concluding at the end of the King Piccolo saga. In 2009, Dragon Ball Raging Blast was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360 and Sony PlayStation 3. This 3D fighter focused on customization with scenarios to complete to unlock items. With a story spanning the entirety of Zen and some what-if scenarios, players can unlock additional characters and transformations. In 2010, Dragon Ball Raging Blast 2 was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360 and Sony PlayStation 3. Much like the original Raging Blast, this game is a 3D fighter, but with story elements that expand beyond the Zen storyline into the movies. This game also released with a 30-minute non-canon animated film called Dragon Ball, planned to eradicate the Super Saiyans. In 2011, Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Tenkaichi was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360 and Sony PlayStation 3. This 3D fighting game had manga-style graphics and larger open areas than in previous Dragon Ball fighting games. The story spans through Zen, GT, and the movies. In 2012, Dragon Ball Z for Kinect was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360. A first-person fighting game, players took the role of their favorite characters moving in front of the Kinect camera to perform fighting moves and dodges. Players could also play through the battles from the entire Zen storyline.
Become a Dragon Ball Z warrior in a whole new world of action.
In 2014, Dragon Ball Battle of Z was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360, Sony PlayStation 3, and Sony PlayStation Vita. This 3D fighting game used cards to customize character abilities. The story is intertwined through Zen in the form of missions with the ability to unlock non-canon missions. In 2015, J-Star's Victory Versus was released on the Sony PlayStation 3, Sony PlayStation 4, and Sony PlayStation Vita. An up to 3-on-3 fighting game, this game crossed over the universes of many of the Shonen Jump franchises. With a story mode separated into multiple arcs, the goal is to ultimately defeat the Dark Phantom.
今の俺にできること。私なら。
In 2015, Dragon Ball Xenoverse was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360, Microsoft Xbox One, Sony PlayStation 3, Sony PlayStation 4, and PC. A limited open-world fighting game, Xenoverse had players traveling through time to correct variations in Dragon Ball history under the leadership of the Supreme Kai of Time. In 2016, Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 was released on the Microsoft Xbox One, Sony PlayStation 4, PC, and later on the Nintendo Switch. Continuing where Xenoverse left off, a new threat is altering time and is the player's job to fix it. Still a limited open-world fighting game, the arenas are much larger, more varied, and the story encompasses the broader Dragon Ball universe. In 2018, Dragon Ball FighterZ was released on the Microsoft Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, Sony PlayStation 4, and PC. Built upon the Arc System Works fighting engine, this fighting game returned Dragon Ball to its side view roots, but with an anime-inspired design and moveset similar to other Arc games. Characters from Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, Dragon Ball Super, and the movies were selectable. In addition, an original character and story linking the Red Ribbon Army and Android sagas together is introduced.
There's no escape!
In 2018, Dragon Ball Z Super Butoden was released on the Nintendo Switch. Originally released on the Super Famicom in Japan in 1993, Super Butoden was a pre-order bonus for those who bought Dragon Ball FighterZ. This fighting game story began at Dragon Ball's Piccolo Jr. saga and concluded at the Cell Game saga in Dragon Ball Z. In 2019, Jump Force was released on the Microsoft Xbox One, Sony PlayStation 4, and PC. Featuring characters from a number of shonen properties, this 3D fighter tells the story of an interdimensional criminal infecting popular manga and anime characters. The player's job is to team up to battle, heal, and recruit characters to ultimately defeat the big bad. In 2019, Super Dragon Ball Heroes World Mission was released on the Nintendo Switch. Built upon the stories of Dragon Ball Xenoverse and its sequel, this trading card game encourages players to battle and collect cards in which to create strong decks so that they may move the story forward.
Ways to play, and even includes a full-length single-player campaign featuring brand new characters and an original story. In arcade mode, relive your favorite rivalries and
In 2020, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot was released on the Microsoft Xbox One, Sony PlayStation 4, and PC. This third-person role-playing game includes real-time fights as players complete the Zen storyline. Additional downloadable content adds Dragon Ball Super and movie story elements. Dragon Ball has been an icon in popular culture for over 35 years with no sign of slowing down. With the establishment of now classic characters and regular product releases, there is still plenty of room for growth in the franchise first established in 1984. Let us hope that Dragon Ball will continue to live on forever. If you have any comments or questions, please post them. Also remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I am Anthony from Hatchet, and today we're going to look at a part of the history of Dragon Ball. Begun in the pages of the Japanese version of Shonen Jump magazine, Dragon Ball tells the story of a young boy who travels with a teenage girl around the world to collect the mysterious Dragon Balls. Meeting new friends and enemies, Goku and Bulma get into action fantasy hijinks that ultimately lead to a wish on the Dragon Balls. Over the years, the characters have grown up, started families, and continue to be one of the top entertainment properties in the world. For purposes of simplicity, we will be focusing on products released in North America. In 2002, Dragon Ball Z Legacy of Goku was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. A role-playing game, players began at the start of the Zen storyline and worked their way through the Frieza saga. Players could only play through the story as Goku while traversing the world, but could also complete side quests. In 2002, Dragon Ball Z collectible card game was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. This collectible card game was based upon its real-world equivalent made by Score and later Panini in the style of the Pokemon trading card game video game. As players progressed through the story, they could unlock additional cards that could be used to modify their decks. In 2002, Dragon Ball Z Legendary Super Warriors was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Color. A turn-based fighting game, players use cards to determine actions. This game covered story elements from the entirety of Zen. In 2003, Dragon Ball Z Legacy of Goku 2 was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. This role-playing game began with a few of the movie's stories before ultimately concluding with the Cell Saga. Unlike the first game in the series, more than just Goku could be selected as a playable character, but only in specific stories where it was required. In 2003, Dragon Ball Z Taiketsu was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. This 2D fighting game focused on characters within the Zen storyline. However, once unlocked, Broly became available. In 2004, Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. This 2D fighting game covered story elements from the entirety of Zen. The story mode allowed players to choose a character to experience a unique story, including a number of what-if scenarios. In 2004, Dragon Ball Z Boo's Fury was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. The final part of the Legacy of Goku trilogy, this role-playing game focused on the Boo saga, as well as Goku's time in Otherworld. Additional movie scenarios were also included. In 2005, Dragon Ball Advanced Adventure was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. This beat-em-up game began at the starting point of the original Dragon Ball series, where Goku met Bulma, and ends at the King Piccolo saga. Characters unlocked in the story mode could be used in the fighting mode. In 2005, Dragon Ball GT Transformation was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. This beat-em-up occurred in the GT storyline. Players travel from planet to planet to complete the story and unlock other characters to be used in a team in the single-player mode. In 2005, Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors 2 was released on the Nintendo DS. This 2D fighting game had players choose members for a team in which to do battle against other teams in its battle mode. The story mode covers the entirety of Zen, as well as movie and what-ifs episodes. In 2006, Dragon Ball Z Shin Budokai was released on the Sony PlayStation Portable. This 2D fighting game story follows that of the movie Fusions Reborn. There is also an arcade mode with the goal of collecting all 7 Dragon Balls. In 2007, Dragon Ball Z Shin Budokai Another Road was released on the Sony PlayStation Portable. This 2D fighting game story follows an alternate timeline with Trunks and how he dealt with Majin Buu's release. Additional movie story elements are also included, like Broly and Cooler. In 2007, Dragon Ball Z, The Distant Legend of Goku was released on the Nintendo DS. A role-playing card battling game, its story began at the Saiyan Saga and concluded in the Cell game saga of Zen. Players chose a hero character to play through the story and were aided by numerous support characters. In 2008, Dragon Ball Origins was released on the Nintendo DS. This platforming game focused upon the first 2 sagas of Dragon Ball. Goku and company travel the world acquiring allies and defeating enemies, ultimately leading to the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament. In 2009, Dragon Ball Evolution was released on the Sony PlayStation Portable, a fighting game based upon the movie of the same name. Goku battled King Piccolo and his minions in an effort to prevent the abuse of the Dragon Balls. In 2009, Dragon Ball Z Attack of the Saiyans was released on the Nintendo DS. This role-playing game begins at the Piccolo Jr. saga of Dragon Ball and concluded with the Saiyan saga in Zen. Once unlocked, players can create a team to customize and utilize in battle. In 2010, Dragon Ball Origins 2 was released on the Nintendo DS. Continuing where Origins left off, this platforming game covered the Red Ribbon Army and Fortune Teller Baba sagas. There is also a co-op and a collectible figure element that players can partake in with other players wirelessly. In 2010, Dragon Ball Z Tenkaichi Tag Team was released on the Sony PlayStation Portable. This fighting game focused entirely on the Zen storyline, but once completed, unlocked what-if stories. It also allowed players to battle in 1 and 2 character teams. In 2014, Dragon Ball Battle of Z was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360, Sony PlayStation 3, and Sony PlayStation Vita. This 3D fighting game used cards to customize character abilities. The story is intertwined through Zen in the form of missions with the ability to unlock non-canon missions. In 2015, J-Star's Victory Versus was released on the Sony PlayStation 3, Sony PlayStation 4, and Sony PlayStation Vita. An up to 3-on-3 fighting game, this game crossed over the universes of many of the Shonen Jump franchises. With a story mode separated into multiple arcs, the goal is to ultimately defeat the Dark Phantom. In 2015, Dragon Ball Z Extreme Boutuden was released on the Nintendo 3DS. A 2D fighting game, it has over 100 characters which can be played in single or 2 character teams. The story encompassed Zen, but additional modes included characters from other series. In In 2015, Dragon Ball Z Super Butoden 2 was released on the Nintendo 3DS. Originally released on the Super Famicom in Japan in 1993, Super Butoden 2 was a pre-order bonus for those who bought Dragon Ball Z Extreme Butoden. Super Butoden 2's story covered the Cell Games saga as well as the BoJack and Broly movies. In 2016, Dragon Ball Fusions was released on the Nintendo 3DS. This role-playing game began with original characters who used the Dragon Balls to wish for a martial arts tournament. As a result, a rift in space-time was created, and the original characters must now team up with characters from the entire history of Dragon Ball to save the day.
All-new ultra-powerful warrior. Throughout Dragon Ball history, the use of the dance has been exceedingly rare, performed only under the most dire circumstances. That is,
Dragon Ball has been an icon in popular culture for over 35 years with no sign of slowing down. With the establishment of now classic characters and regular product releases, there is still plenty of room for growth in the franchise first established in 1984. Let us hope that Dragon Ball will continue to live on forever. If you have any comments or questions, please post them. Also remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Less than 50% of viewers have subscribed to this channel. Please consider clicking that subscribe button to get us one step closer to monetization. Thank you for watching. I am Anthony from HNE, and today we're going to take a look at a part of the history of Mortal Kombat. Begun as a video game in arcades in 1992, Mortal Kombat depicted a war between Earthrealm and Outworld. A direct competitor to the Street Fighter series in the arcades, Mortal Kombat differentiated itself by being ultra-violent. As a result, the United States government forced the creation of a video game rating system to curtail children from purchasing such games. Over the years, the characters and story have evolved to be one of the top entertainment properties in the world. For purposes of simplicity, we will be focusing on products released in North America. In 1992, Mortal Kombat was originally released in arcades, then on the Nintendo Game Boy, Sega Game Gear, Sega Genesis, and Super Nintendo Entertainment System. A 2D fighting game using digitized character models, Mortal Kombat featured violence at levels previously unseen in a video game. As a result, the Nintendo version had some of the content hidden or changed. The release of Mortal Kombat directly led to the creation of the Entertainment Software Rating Board.
Fight!
In 1993, Mortal Kombat 2 was originally released in arcades, then on the Nintendo Game Boy, Sega 32X, Sega Game Gear, Sega Genesis, and Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Continuing the story of fighters from Earthrealm against those of Outworld, the Outworld Emperor, Shao Kahn, appeared to demand a rematch. With a larger roster, this 2D fighting game increased its violence level, making it certainly worth its newly earned mature rating. In 1995, Mortal Kombat 3 was originally released in arcades, then on the Sega Genesis, Sony PlayStation, and Super Nintendo Entertainment System. The story continues with Shao Kahn attempting to merge Earthrealm with Outworld. This game introduces new features such as a run button, combos, cyborgs, and a resurrected queen, as well as a larger roster.
Reptile wins. Round 2. Fight!
Also in 1995, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 was originally released in arcades, then on the Sega Genesis, Sega Saturn, and Super Nintendo Entertainment System. An updated edition of Mortal Kombat 3, UMK3, included additional characters, new gameplay modes, and better character balancing.
Fight!
In 1996, Mortal Kombat Trilogy was released on the Nintendo 64, Sega Saturn, Sony PlayStation, and PC. Another update of Mortal Kombat 3, MKT added all previous characters and stages from throughout Mortal Kombat and its sequels. A new feature included the Aggressor Bar, which, once filled, increased combo speed and damage that could ultimately end in the finisher known as a Brutality. In 1997, Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero was released on the Nintendo 64 and Sony PlayStation. A sequel to the original Mortal Kombat, Sub-Zero was tasked by his clan to acquire the Elder God Shinnok's amulet. A two-dimensional action-adventure game, Sub-Zero had to fight his way through various levels, defeating both old and new enemies while on his quest.
Welcome to Mortal Kombat Sub-Zero. Like no other Mortal Kombat game before.
Also in 1997, Mortal Kombat 4 was originally released in the arcades, then on the Nintendo 64, Nintendo Game Boy Color, Sony PlayStation, and PC. Now a 3D polygonal fighter, MK4 introduces objects and weapons to fights. An additional feature named Maximum Damage was added that limited combos to prevent chain exploitation that could lead an opponent being unable to counter prior to losing the round.
Now, after Shao Kahn's defeat at the hands of Earth's warriors, Shinnok has managed to escape his confines in the Netherrealm. The war is now being fought once again. Only this time, it can be won by mortals.
In 1998, Mortal Kombat Gold was released on the Sega Dreamcast. It was an updated version of Mortal Kombat 4. MK Gold included new stages and characters. And exclusive for the Dreamcast, the game also included VMU memory card support. In 2000, Mortal Kombat Special Forces was released on the Sony PlayStation. A three-dimensional action-adventure game, Special Forces tasks players with Jax, who must hunt down and capture Kano, the leader of the Black Dragons. Chronologically, Special Forces' story occurs before Mythologies. In 2001, Mortal Kombat Advance was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. A port of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System version, it contained less characters, finishing moves, and control functionality. In addition, the violence was toned down to be more appealing to children, despite maintaining the mature rating.
Fight! Jax wins.
In 2002, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance was released on the Microsoft Xbox, Nintendo Game Boy Advance, Nintendo GameCube, and Sony PlayStation 2. This time, Quan Chi and Shang Tsung have teamed up in hopes to jointly conquer both Earthrealm and Outworld. New features to this game included the ability to change fighting styles on the fly, player dial-a combo creation, a RPG-style story mode, and the Crypt.
And returning characters. Ominous and exquisitely detailed interactive environments. And all new for the first touch systems. Fatalities. Special DVD.
In 2003, Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. An updated version of Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance on the GBA, it included characters that were not in the original GBA version of the game that were in the console versions. In addition, both GBA versions featured one less fighting style for each character. In 2004, Mortal Kombat Deception was released on the Microsoft Xbox, Nintendo GameCube, and Sony PlayStation 2. Continuing the storyline of Deadly Alliance, Quan Chi and Shang Tsung turned on each other once they had achieved their goals, only to be defeated by the newly awakened Dragon King, Onaga. Deception included 2 minigames, both were Mortal Kombat's takes on chess and a matching puzzle game. In 2005, Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks was released on the Microsoft Xbox and Sony PlayStation 2. A 3-dimensional action-adventure game, the story occurs around Mortal Kombat 2. Liu Kang and Kung Lao must fight the forces of Outworld while also protecting Earthrealm. There is also a fighting mode where characters are unlocked during the story, in addition to a copy of Mortal Kombat 2.
And they prevailed. The sorcerer, Shang Tsung, chose to run, accepting his defeat. Through a portal to Outworld, the horde of rogues escaped. The Thunder God assured the warriors, but the champion of Earthrealm and his most trusted ally.
In 2006, Mortal Kombat Armageddon was released on the Microsoft Xbox, Nintendo Wii, and Sony PlayStation 2. In a story that concluded this timeline in Mortal Kombat, 2 brothers are tasked with competing against each other to prevent the end of the world. Featuring every character in the series dating back to Deadly Alliance, players could now create their own character. There was also a new kart racer minigame.
Flawless victory. Round 2. Fight!
Also in 2006, Mortal Kombat Unchained was released on the Sony PlayStation Portable. A port of the Nintendo GameCube version, the game included Shao Kahn, Goro, Katana Jax, Frost, and Blaze as playable characters. In addition, everything but alternate costumes are initially unlocked. As an exclusive, an endurance mode was added.
Be a wireless combat. Test your skills with the new endurance mode. Go on an adventure mode. Play chess and puzzle combat, MK style. Now you can take the fight anywhere. Mortal Kombat Unchained.
In 2007, Ultimate Mortal Kombat was released on the Nintendo DS. The game was an arcade-perfect port of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 that included Wi-Fi. In addition, Puzzle Combat was included from Mortal Kombat Deception. Plus, once the characters Ermac, Mileena, and Classic Sub-Zero were unlocked via combat codes on the Versus screen, they remained unlocked. In 2008, Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360 and Sony PlayStation 3. Not directly related to the main Mortal Kombat or DCU storylines, the game is an Elseworlds crossover 3D fighting game. During battles occurring in both universes, Darkseid and Shao Kahn are forced through an interdimensional portal that combines them into Dark Kahn. Once united, Dark Kahn draws characters from both universes and uses magic to balance the power scale. The game also introduced a rage mode that enabled a momentary buff to characters. Due to Warner Bros. Requiring the game to maintain a teen rating, much of the violence was toned down, and the superheroes did not have fatalities.
Flawless victory. Round
In 2011, Mortal Kombat was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360, Sony PlayStation 3, and Sony PlayStation Vita. An updated Complete Edition was then released in 2012 on the Microsoft Xbox 360, Sony PlayStation 3, and PC that included all of the downloadable content. This game returned the series to its two-dimensional fighting roots while the art maintained a 2.5D look. An alternate reality from the previous games, the story returns to that of the original Mortal Kombat trilogy. Seeing the memories of the other universe's Raiden, this world's Raiden attempted to make changes to events as they played out.
Round 1. Fight!
Also in 2011, Mortal Kombat Arcade Collection was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360, Sony PlayStation 3, and PC. This compilation included the original 16-bit Mortal Kombat 2, and Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Originally intended to be a HD remake, the games were simply updated to have online play and some quality of life improvements.
Excellent. Scorpion wins.
In 2015, Mortal Kombat X was released on the Microsoft Xbox One, Sony PlayStation 4, and PC. An updated XL edition was later released on the same platforms that included all of the downloadable content. There was also a mobile version called Mortal Kombat Mobile. Continuing 20 years after the story of the previous game, now referred to as Mortal Kombat 9, the next generation of fighters were introduced. Earthrealm had an uneasy alliance with Outworld and its current emperor, Kotal Khan. That peace was ended when Shinnok offered Outworld what Shao Kahn could not accomplish. In 2019, Mortal Kombat 11 was released on the Microsoft Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, Sony PlayStation 4, and PC. The third chapter in the ongoing story, Raiden had become corrupted by Shinnok's amulet and threatened the Elder Gods if they attempted to interfere with Earthrealm. Shinnok's mother, Kronika, teamed up with the rulers of Netherrealm to take down Raiden and reset the timeline once again. In a post-story expansion called Aftermath, a fight ensues to prevent the rulers of Netherrealm from resetting time in light of Kronika's defeat.
Mortal Kombat has been an icon in popular culture for over 30 years with no sign of slowing down. With the establishment of now classic characters and regular product releases, there is still plenty of room for growth in the franchise first established in 1992. Let us hope that Mortal Kombat will continue to live on forever. If you have any comments or questions, please post them. Also remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I am Anthony from HasslersNet, and today we're going to take a look at a part of the history of the Super Mario games. Begun as a video game on the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1985, Super Mario began as a team of plumber brothers who fought against a villain known as King Koopa. Taking place originally in the Mushroom Kingdom, the brothers had to save the kingdom after the princess was kidnapped. Over the years, the character roster has expanded and continues to be one of the top entertainment properties in the world. For purposes of simplicity, we will be focusing on product releases in North America. In 1983, Mario Bros. Was released in the arcades. A two-dimensional platforming game, Mario and Luigi were tasked with bumping off the creatures that they found in the sewers.
However, since not technically part of the main Super Mario franchise, this Mario series will not be covered beyond this entry. Here's a list of other released games in this series. In 1985, Super Mario Bros. Was released on the Nintendo Entertainment System. A two-dimensional side-scrolling platformer, it featured two plumber brothers that had to cross 8 different worlds, each with multiple levels, to save the princess of the Mushroom Kingdom. A theme that will be repeated infinitum, Bowser, the king of the Koopas, had kidnapped Princess Peach Toadstool and placed his army in between the brothers and the princess. Depending upon the cartridge version, it may have had a classic Mario Bros. Duck Hunt or some other pack-in game. In 1988, Super Mario Bros. 2 was released on the Nintendo Entertainment System. A two-dimensional side-scrolling platformer, it was built upon the Japanese exclusive Doki Doki Panic. This time, Mario, Luigi, Princess Toadstool, and Toad were playable characters, each with different attributes. The plot has the team fighting against new enemies in a dream world. In between stages, the player could choose a different character. In 1990, Super Mario Bros. 3 was released on the Nintendo Entertainment System. A two-dimensional side-scrolling platformer, Bowser had once again kidnapped Princess Toadstool, but in the brothers' way to rescue her were 7 Koopalings. Only once defeating the children may the plumbers battle Bowser. This is the first Super Mario game with a world map. In 1989, Super Mario Land was released on the Nintendo Game Boy. A two-dimensional side-scrolling platformer, the game takes place in a new land named Sarasaland. Mario, now alone, must save Princess Daisy from a new baddie whose name is easily forgotten. However, instead of the typical 8 worlds as found in the original Super Mario Bros., this game only had 4, each with 3 levels. In 1991, Super Mario World was released on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. A two-dimensional side-scrolling platformer, this game was a direct continuation of the Super Mario Bros. 3 storyline. However, this time, while on vacation, Princess Toadstool was kidnapped by Bowser and taken to Dinosaur Land. Their brothers made new friends of the Yoshi and gained new transformational abilities. In 1992, Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins was released on the Nintendo Game Boy. A two-dimensional side-scroller platformer, the storyline continued from Super Mario Land. While Mario was in Sarasa Land, his childhood rival Wario placed an evil spell upon Mario Land, Mario's private island in the Mushroom Kingdom. Mario had to find the 6 Golden Coins to regain access to his castle and defeat Wario. Also in 1992, Super Mario Kart was released on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. However, since not technically part of the main Super Mario franchise, this kart racing series will not be covered beyond this entry. Here is a list of other release games in the series. In 1993, Super Mario All-Stars was released on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. The first version of the game included the original Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. The Last Levels, Super Mario Bros. 2, and Super Mario Bros. 3. A later release also included Super Mario World on the cartridge. All of the NES games had graphical updates to better match the quality of Super Mario World. In In 1994, Super Mario Land 3 Wario Land was released on the Nintendo Game Boy. A two-dimensional side-scrolling platformer, the storyline continued from Super Mario Land 2. After being defeated by Mario, Wario decided that he needed his own bigger and better castle. However, Wario lacked the capital, so he decided to liberate some pirates of their treasure. Now, as Wario, players can use a new moveset and power-ups.
Get it on Game Boy, greedy.
In 1995, Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island was released on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. A two-dimensional side-scrolling platformer, this game took place in the Mario Brothers past as a result of Kamek kidnapping baby Luigi. With baby Mario being discovered by Yoshi, the dinosaur took it upon himself to return the brothers home. Controlling Yoshi, players could toss eggs to solve puzzles and defeat enemies. However, since not technically part of the main Super Mario franchise, the sequels to this game will not be covered beyond this entry. Here is a list of those sequels.
In 1996, Super Mario 64 was released on the Nintendo 64. A three-dimensional third-person platformer, Mario was invited to Princess Peach's castle for some cake. Upon arrival, Mario discovered that the princess had once again been kidnapped by Bowser. Mario had to fully explore the castle to find painting portals in which to gather the 120 Power Stars to free the princess and her staff. Along his journey, he discovered many new power-ups such as a metal form and a wing cap that enabled flight.
Bye-bye!
Also in 1996, Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars was released on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. An isometric turn-based role-playing game, Mario and his friends met characters from a new land, even teaming up with Bowser to save the kidnapped Princess Toadstool from new enemies. This game was officially the first RPG in the franchise. In 1999, Super Smash Bros. Was released on the Nintendo 64. However, since not technically part of the main Super Mario franchise, this fighting series will not be covered beyond this entry. Here is a list of other released games in this series. In 2000, Paper Mario was released on the Nintendo 64. However, since not technically part of the main Super Mario franchise, this role-playing series will not be covered beyond this entry. Here is a list of other released games in this series.
In 2001, Luigi's Mansion was released on the Nintendo GameCube and later on the Nintendo 3DS. A third-dimensional action-adventure game, Luigi is tasked with exploring haunted locations to find his missing brother, Mario. Also, this entry exists so that I can say busting makes me feel good. However, since not technically part of the main Super Mario franchise, this ghost busting series will not be covered beyond this entry. Here is a list of other release games in this series.
Nowhere to be found.
Mario!
Luigi in bad company. And these ghosts would rather trick than treat. Can Luigi fake?
Also in 2001, Super Mario Advance Super Mario Bros. 2 was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. This series re-released the updated Super Mario All-Stars versions of the original Super Mario games with additional features. However, since this is a re-release of a game from the main Super Mario franchise, this series will not be covered beyond this entry. Here is a list of other released games in this series.
In 2002, Super Mario Sunshine was released on the Nintendo GameCube. A three-dimensional third-person platforming game, Mario found himself on the Isle Delfino for another vacation with Princess Peach. However, after discovering the island covered in an odd paint-like goop, Mario strapped on a water cannon to wash it all away. Mario soon discovered that his doppelganger, Shadow Mario, was the one that had been causing all of the problems. The water cannon, known as Flood, allowed Mario to fly for a limited time as well as wash away any goop and enemies.
Welcome to the sun-drenched tropical paradise of Isle Delfino. We're so pleased to...
In 2003, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. However, since not technically part of the main Super Mario franchise, this role-playing series will not be covered beyond this entry. Here is a list of other release games in this series. In 2006, New Super Mario Bros. Was released on the Nintendo DS. A 2.5-dimensional side-scrolling platformer, Mario once again found himself on a quest to save Princess Peach. However, this time it is from Bowser Jr. Once again with Luigi, Mario and his brother have access to new abilities such as a super mushroom that could increase their size and a mini mushroom that did the opposite. In 2007, Super Mario Galaxy was released on the Nintendo Wii. A three-dimensional third-person platformer, Princess Peach invited Mario over to see a creature known as a Luma that she had discovered during the Star Festival. Bowser appeared, once again, to kidnap the princess. Kamek knocked Mario out by launching him into a planetoid. Upon waking, Mario found the Luma that the princess had discovered as well as a Princess Rosalina. This game introduced players to a new galaxy with a new take on gravitational physics. In 2009, New Super Mario Bros. Wii was released on the Nintendo Wii. It was a 2.5-dimensional side-scrolling platformer where up to 4 players could competitively or cooperatively race across the screen towards the goal. There were 9 worlds, each with multiple levels and bosses. This was another story where Bowser kidnapped Princess Peach. Mario and pals gained new abilities such as a penguin hat that enabled them to swim and slide, as well as a propeller mushroom that allowed for limited flight. In 2010, Super Mario Galaxy 2 was released on the Nintendo Wii. A three-dimensional third-person platformer, this game continued with Super Mario Galaxy's take on gravitational physics. Occurring a year after the previous Star Festival, Mario found himself in space after a kaiju-sized Bowser attacked Princess Peach's castle. With the help of Luigi, Yoshi, and others, Mario saved the princess. In 2011, Super Mario 3D Land was released on the Nintendo 3DS. A three-dimensional side-scrolling platformer, Bowser once again kidnapped Princess Peach. However, after a storm, a tail tree with super leaves was stripped bare, and as a result, Bowser bestowed his minions with squirrel tails. Mario must now defeat the super-powered minions, save the princess, and restore the tail tree. In 2012, New Super Mario Bros. 2 was released on the Nintendo 3DS, a 2.5-dimensional side-scrolling platformer. This game is a direct sequel to New Super Mario Bros. It goes without saying, but Bowser had once again kidnapped Princess Peach, and it's Mario's job to save her. With Luigi in tow, Mario can collect star coins to unlock new paths in the overworld map. Also in 2012, New Super Mario Bros. U was released on the Nintendo Wii U. It was a 2.5-dimensional side-scrolling platformer where up to 4 players could competitively or cooperatively race across the screen towards the goal. This game was also the first in the series to be produced in high definition. In a twist, Princess Peach is held prisoner in her own castle by Bowser, Bowser Jr., and the Koopalings. Together, Yoshi, Mario, Luigi, and Toad must save the princess. An expansion named New Super Luigi U was released in 2013 as part of the Year of Luigi. In 2014, Super Mario 3D World was released on the Nintendo Wii U. A three-dimensional side-scrolling platformer, Mario and his friends must save the fairy-like Sprixies from Bowser. New to the game is a power-up named the Super Bell. This item turned the characters into cats and allowed them to use a scratch attack and climb up walls. In 2021, the Nintendo Switch Enhanced port included additional content known as Bowser's Fury. In this game, Mario, as a giant cat, fights a kaiju-like Bowser. In 2015, Super Mario Maker was released on the Nintendo Wii U and in 2016 on the Nintendo 3DS. However, since not technically part of the main Super Mario franchise, this level creation series will not be covered beyond this entry. In 2019, Super Mario Maker 2 was released on the Nintendo Switch. The game did have a platforming story mode that taught the players how to utilize the game's building mechanics. In 2016, Super Mario Run was released on iOS mobile devices and in 2017 on Android mobile devices. A 2.5-dimensional side-scrolling auto-running platformer, Mario and friends must race to rescue Princess Peach from Bowser while avoiding dangers and collecting coins. This game was all about timed actions that led to the most items collected and the fastest times each level was completed. In 2017, Super Mario Odyssey was released on the Nintendo Switch. A three-dimensional action-adventure platformer, Mario found himself in the Cap Kingdom after failing to rescue Princess Peach from Bowser, who wanted her to marry him. In the New Kingdom, Mario befriended a sentient Cap known as Cappy that allowed him to possess other beings and objects, as well as enabled him to access new platforming mechanics.
Come on!
In 2020, Super Mario 3D All-Stars was released on the Nintendo Switch. This game was a compilation of the three-dimensional third-person platformers Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy. If you are curious as to why I know Super Mario Galaxy 2, welcome to the club! The games were high-definition ports with modern technical updates and controls. Throughout Super Mario's history, Mario and friends had appeared in dozens of spin-off sports games, from baseball, golf, soccer, tennis, to even the Olympics with Sonic the Hedgehog and his friends. There are just too many games to list. Thus, in this video's description is an URL for a list on Wikipedia.
Super Mario has been an icon in popular culture for over 35 years with no sign of slowing down. With the establishment of now classic characters and regular product releases, there is still plenty of room for growth in the franchise first established in 1985. Let us hope that Super Mario will continue to live on forever. If you have any comments or questions, please post them. Also remember to like and subscribe.
I am Anthony from HashNet, and today we're going to look at part of the history of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, also known as the TMNT. Started by two men who love to draw comic book characters, their story about a mutated rat and four turtles exploded into 1980s popular culture. Almost as soon as their first comic book was released, they knew that they had stumbled onto something. Creating their own development studio, their characters have made their way into animation, movies, toys, and video games. For purposes of simplicity, we will be focusing on products released in North America. In 1989, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was released on the Nintendo Entertainment System and home computers. Choosing either of the 4 heroes in a half shell, players could explore an overworld map to enter side-scrolling platforming areas in hopes of rescuing April from the Shredder. In 1990, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, was released on the Nintendo Entertainment System and home computers. A remake of the popular arcade game, up to 2 players could battle the Foot Clan in this side-scrolling beat-em-up adventure in hopes of stopping Shredder's plans for world domination. Also in 1990, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan was released on the Nintendo Game Boy. A story similar to the original Nintendo Entertainment System release, the Turtles must rescue April from the Shredder in this side-scrolling adventure. In 1991, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3: The Manhattan Project was released on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Similar to the 1990s, the arcade game in design, but graphically superior, the Turtles must save a floating Manhattan Island from the Shredder. Also in 1991, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Manhattan Missions was released on home computers. Similar to the format of the classic Prince of Persia game, the Turtles must complete various platforming missions located on a map before they can challenge the Shredder. Also in 1991, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: Back from the Sewers was released on the Nintendo Game Boy. A cross between Fall of the Foot Clan and the arcade game in design, the Turtles fight the Foot Clan in this side-scrolling beat-em-up adventure to stop Shredder and Krang from world domination. In 1992, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4: Turtles in Time was released on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Visually similar to the arcade game released the previous year, Turtles in Time changes up the story with time travel. In addition, this beat-em-up features some Super FX additions utilizing sprite scaling. In 2009, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4: Turtles in Time would be reshelled and released for the Microsoft Xbox 360 and Sony PlayStation 3. Also in 1992, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Hyperstone Heist was released on the Sega Genesis. Interrupting April O'Neil's television news broadcast, the Shredder shrinks the island of Manhattan in a demonstration of the power of the Hyperstone. Swearing to take over the world, the Turtles have no choice but to confront the Foot Clan in this side-scrolling beat-em-up adventure. In 1993, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3: Radical Rescue was released on the Nintendo Game Boy. Departing from the familiar side-scrolling territory, Radical Rescue has Michelangelo set out to rescue the remaining Turtles, Splinter, and April, all of which have been kidnapped by the Shredder. Also in 1993, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters was released on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System and Sega Genesis. The following year would see a downgraded version released on the Nintendo Entertainment System. The first true fighting game for the Turtles, they must contend with a number of rivals and each other to defeat the plans of the Foot Clan. The overall story, character roster, and gameplay varies between versions. throws right. And it's a fairly even match. Can we see? In 2003, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance, Nintendo GameCube, Microsoft Xbox, Sony PlayStation 2, and home computers. Based upon the 2003 animated series, this platforming adventure also included third-person vehicular racing, where players must defeat Hun before they can fight the Shredder. Due to their enhanced formats, the GameCube, Xbox, and PlayStation versions of the game included expanded story elements, level designs, and improved visuals to become a cel-shaded third-person beat-em-up. In 2004, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Battle Nexus was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance, Nintendo GameCube, Microsoft Xbox, Sony PlayStation 2, and home computers. Built similarly to 2003's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, this time the Turtles must each create a team to work towards saving Splinter while traveling around the galaxy. Once unlocked, players can compete in the Battle Nexus tournament. In 2005, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 Mutant Nightmare was released on the Nintendo DS, Nintendo GameCube, Microsoft Xbox, and Sony PlayStation 2. Built similarly to 2003's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, this time the Turtles must deal with an alien invasion, Masters discovering the lair, fighting the Foot Clan, and ultimately gaining mystic abilities to defeat Ultimate Draco. Also in 2005, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Melee was released on the Nintendo GameCube, Microsoft Xbox, Sony PlayStation 2, and home computers. A 2.5D fighting game based in various 3D arenas, Mutant Melee offers multiple game modes including Keep Away, King of the Hill, Knockout, and Last Man Standing. In 2007, TMNT was released on the Nintendo DS, Nintendo Game Boy Advance, Nintendo GameCube, Microsoft Xbox 360, Sony PlayStation 2, Sony PlayStation Portable, and home computers. TMNT was a multi-platform action game that loosely followed the plot of the movie. Compared to modern Prince of Persia games, each turtle had special abilities to assist them in navigation. Also in 2007, TMNT Ninja Adventures was released on home computers. A pack-in promotion with TMNT action figures, this short side-scrolling adventure game also doubled as an activity center targeted towards children. In 2009, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Smash Up was released on the Nintendo Wii and Sony PlayStation 2. Smash Up was a 2.5D fighting game created to be similar to Super Smash Bros., but with the Turtles roster of characters as well as a few Ubisoft original characters. The game also featured online play and included a comic book upon release. Also in 2009, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Arcade Attack was released on the Nintendo DS. Arcade Attack story takes place after the conclusion of the Back to the Sewers animated series. This side-scrolling action game features the Turtles fighting enemies sent back in time by a futuristic Shredder. In 2013, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360, Sony PlayStation 3, and home computers. Going for a more realistic approach to character and environmental design, Out of the Shadows adapted the 2012 animated series storyline to become a hack-and-slash game where the Turtles must stop the Shredder from developing new weapons using stolen Krang technology. Also in 2013, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was released on the Nintendo 3DS, Nintendo Wii, and Microsoft Xbox 360. Based upon the 2012 animated series, the Foot Clan has built a mutagen bomb with the intention to use it against New York City. After defusing the bomb, the Turtles discover that the Shredder has kidnapped April and that he demands a trade for Splinter.
It's time to team up with your friends and stop the evil uprising.
In 2014, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was released on the Nintendo 3DS. An isometric beat-em-up based upon the 2014 movie, the Turtles each have different abilities and can craft items in addition to other RPG mechanics. Also in 2014, there was a movie tie-in game for the Microsoft Xbox 360 Kinect named Training Layer. The game would train players to be ninja and award completion with movie photo assets.
Create heroes.
Also in 2014, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Danger of the Ooze was released on the Nintendo 3DS, Microsoft Xbox 360, and Sony PlayStation 3. Based upon the 2012 animated series, Danger of the Ooze is a side-scrolling action game similar to its predecessor, but with Metroidvania elements. The goal is to keep the mutagen out of the hands of the Foot Clan.
Another Robo Ninja bites the dust.
In 2016, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutants in Manhattan was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360, Microsoft Xbox One, Sony PlayStation 3, Sony PlayStation 4, and home computers. A third-person shell-shaded hack-and-slash game, the Turtles disarm explosives while fighting the Foot Clan, which ultimately leads to a battle with the Shredder. In 2017, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Portal Power was released on home computers. Formerly a mobile game and based upon the 2012 animated series, this isometric game features all four turtles simultaneously as they battle the Foot Clan.
Not bad, guys.
Now stay down.
In 2022, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge was released on the Nintendo Switch, Microsoft Xbox One, Microsoft Xbox Series X and S, Sony PlayStation 4, Sony PlayStation 5, and home computers. Returning to its roots in classic side-scrolling beat-em-up design, Shredder's Revenge is a spiritual successor to the original animated series, Turtles in Time and Hyperstone Heist. In 2022, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga Collection was released on the Nintendo Switch, Microsoft Xbox One, Microsoft Xbox Series X and S, Sony PlayStation 4, Sony PlayStation 5, and home computers. The game featured 13 classic TMNT games, including 2 arcade games, 4 NES games, 2 SNES games, 2 Genesis games, and 3 Game Boy games. Both of the arcade games featured online play. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has been an icon in popular culture for over 35 years, with adaptations and reboots occurring regularly. With the establishment of now classic characters and regular product releases, there is still plenty of room for growth in the franchise first established in 1984. Let us hope that the TMNT will continue to live on forever. If you have any comments or questions, please post them. Also, remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Tell me in the comments your thoughts on this video. Did you like what you saw, and how was your experience with it? Thanks for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe.